Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sagascribe podcast. Today, we have Kacey Ezell. That's how you pronounce it, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Writer of how many titles have you written, Kacey?
Oh, wow. Pop quiz right off the bat. Man, you're tough.
Yeah.
It is over 15. Yeah. We'll just go with that. It is over 15 novels in print right now.
Most famously, you've written Ash of Antasia, Romanov Rising, The Psyche of War, and recently on Royal Road, Shadow Card Guardian. So, Kacey, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on. So, first and foremost, I always like to ask this to people. How did you kind of get started writing? Like, you've been writing for a while, and how did that start?
So, I'm my publisher, Tony Weisskopf over at Bain Books, is really fond of saying, like, writers write because they can't help it. And that was definitely the case for me, right? So I was a very extroverted little kid, kind of precocious. I started reading relatively early, and I became so fascinated by the stories that I was reading that I would, like, go out in the playground and boss all my other little friends around and, like, say, okay, we're going to play Star Wars today, and I'm going to be Princess Leia, and you can be Luke Skywalker. And we would, like, you know, this jungle gym is now the Millennium Falcon. You know, like, I would I would make up these, like, really elaborate scenarios to play pretend with my friends with from the time that I was, like, little, like, you know, pre-kindergarten little. And so in that sense, I've been making up stories, you know, all my life. It's a thing that I do because I can't help it. And so as I was growing up and reading and reading voraciously, I, especially in science fiction and fantasy, that was, you know, my mom got me into that when I was about 7 years old, I think, as a self-defense mechanism, because I would not leave her alone because I wanted more things to read. Yeah. You know, it just, I became so absorbed by these stories, and it just sort of, like, fired up my imagination, and I you know, would make up my own and stuff. So I started writing professionally in 2010. And there's it's kind of an interesting story as to how that happened too. Okay. So there's a science fiction fantasy convention in Atlanta every year called Dragon Con, and it's a big deal. It's so much fun. It's my first and favorite convention. I will go every year that they will have me because it is just,
wow.
There is nothing like it.
I've never been. Yeah. I've always wanted to go. Never had the opportunity.
It is a bucket list item. I'm not gonna lie to you. It is so much fun. It is sensory overload.
Really? Just nerds everywhere.
Nerds everywhere. Yeah, it's you and I am not exaggerating on the number. It is you and 80,000 of your closest friends partying for 6 days in 5 hotels in Atlanta in costume.
So, my goodness.
Wild.
Okay, who'd you go as the first time you went?
So the first time I went, I didn't realize what it was. And the first time I went was in 2001. It was significantly smaller. And I went because I was going to meet up with some people that I had been writing Dragon Riders of Pern fan fiction with on the internet.
Awesome.
And I went, and I remember I walked into, so one of the main hotels, one of the main host hotels is the Hyatt Regency Atlanta. And I remember walking into the doors and seeing, like, you know, dudes in stormtrooper armor walking by, and, like, slave Leias walking by, and, you know, people in fairy costumes with these gorgeous elaborate wings, you know, and just, like, I, like, stopped and I was like, holy crap, did I just walk into my home planet? Like, is this where I've been belonging my whole life that I could never find?
Yeah,
you know,
that's awesome.
So I love Dragon Con, right? So I started going in 2001, and then in 2004, I went with some friends of mine. So I was, at the time, I was active duty U.S. Air Force. Mm-hmm. And in 2004, I went, and we were hanging out on... so I was, at the time, like, I was super small and cute, and I was, like, you know, mid-20s and wearing, like, super cute little short skirt with 4 other girlfriends who were all wearing super cute little short skirts and, club clothes and all that kind of stuff. So, doing what mid-20s super cute girls do at Dragon Con, which is get attention, right? And so we were hanging out on the smoking deck at the old Hyatt before they remodeled it, smoking cigars. And one of the other people who was out there, remarked on it, was like, man, I've never seen so many cute girls all smoking cigars together. And it sounds creepy when I say it like that. It wasn't creepy. It was just, sort of like a fun, like, hey, here's a conversation piece. We started talking to him, and he was like, how do you guys know each other? And we were all in the military together.
Cool. All Air Force.
That. Yeah, all Air Force. I think, yeah. Like one of us was, her husband was in the Air Force, but she was part of our
group, fine.
Right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But so we he was like, well, you guys should meet my friend John Ringo, who writes military science fiction. He's sitting right over here smoking his cigar. And so we got talking to John, and John was like, we got talking to him, and he was telling us about, his books, and we were telling him about what we did. I was at my first assignment as a helicopter pilot, and he was very interested in that because he had some helicopter scenes in his upcoming book. And so we were kind of talking about that a little bit, and we were talking about cigars, and we were talking about, cute girls. And he was like, there was, I mean, if you've ever been to Dragon Con, you understand these are the kinds of conversations you have. You talk about, like big military equipment and, handsome shirtless men all in the same sentence. Like that's just how Dragon Con is, right?
How many cute girls in skirts and handsome ripped men in helicopters can we have? That's what we want.
Yeah, that is an excellent question. And yeah. So anyway, so we're talking about this, and John starts to tell me, he was like, last year there was, or 2 years ago, I can't remember what he said, but he said, I was out here on this smoking deck, because again, we were talking about how you don't see a lot of women smoking cigars. And he said there was this woman who walked out, and she was so beautiful. She was wearing this, he goes, she was like this goddess, and she was wearing this red leather bikini, demon hand bikini that looked like, the bikini cups were like sculpted demon hands, right? And he's telling this story, and I'm smiling, but like my eyes are filling with tears, and I start like, not like actively crying, but like, I'm tearing up. And he's like, what's wrong? What did I say? And I told him, I was like, John, that girl, her name was Tammy Archuleta, and she was my best friend in pilot training, and she was killed in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan last year.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it was like, he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, please don't be sorry, because she loved Dragon Con. She loved the vibe here, and she would love to know that you remembered her that way. Mm-hmm. That like you just remembered her as this beautiful woman who was wearing this amazing costume, having a great time, enjoying the fandom life,
Oh my God.
Because that's what she was all about, right? And
I'm sorry to hear that, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, that happened back in 2003. So it's, it was a long time ago, but she's still sort of with us, I guess, in our memories and stuff. And, but anyway, that was sort of the moment where I think my friendship with John solidified. Right.
Yeah.
And so we stayed in touch after that. And in 2009, I deployed to Iraq for like a year-long assignment as an air advisor. Mm-hmm. And about midway through my tour there, I get this email from John, because he knew that I had written, and he knew that, I had like, I have like a creative writing degree and stuff. And I got this email from him, and he was like, hey, I just picked up this project. I'm editing an anthology of military science fiction stories written by military authors, and I want to include some new voices. Do you have anything? To which I said, no, but I could.
But I can. I will.
Yeah. And so 24 hours later, I sent him the first draft of the story that became my first pro sale, which was it was the story Light, and it was published by Bain Books in the anthology.
Okay.
Citizens. Yeah.
What's it about?
So that was. It's about a weird. It's about a helicopter pilot and one of her crew who they're flying in the desert in Iraq, and they get shot down, and they're like some weird sort of supernatural thing happens to them that allows them to survive the being isolated personnel and being chased by the enemy, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks.
That's a great start to get started writing. My goodness, it's a great story.
Yeah, well, and the thing is that like I hit the lottery, man, when it came to like the start of my career. Nobody ever has it as I have to recognize how lucky I've gotten, right, and how privileged I am, because nobody ever has it this easy. But yeah, I made this connection, over cigars and short skirts and helicopters and absent friends,
in
lost
Atlanta.
friends, right? Yeah, in Atlanta. And then that connection led to, an invitation to submit a short story for a pro sale.
Mm-hmm.
And that story led to another invitation in later on when John was doing the Black Tide Rising zombie series. He asked me if I wanted to contribute a story, and I did, and that one inspired the cover art, which got me a lot more attention as a writer, got me a lot more invitations to participate in like the Four Horsemen universe, shared universe, done by Chris Kennedy Publishing, which is this huge, like, I think there's almost 100 books out in that.
Oh my goodness!
In that series,
I have not read any of those, but that sounds great.
It is fantastic. It's very, very like wide ranging.
It's about the apocalypse,
series,
right?
So it's called the Four Horsemen universe. It is actually a mech based mercenary combat universe.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. The first book's called Cartwright's Cavaliers by Mark Wandry, and who's the creator of the universe. But it is a shared universe, so there's like a lot of different storylines by a lot of different authors.
Have you heard of? Do you know who DM Rook is?
Yeah.
DM Rook? Yeah. I was just gonna say that it reminds me of his kind of stuff, where it's like mech
Yeah.
days.
Well, so I was reading his Hounds of Orion story, and it has a lot of that same feel. Which that story is excellent, by the way.
It is great.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
It is okay. So that's a great introduction to like how you got started writing, and then ever since then it's been off to the races.
Kind of, yeah. Because, like I said, I can't stop myself from making up stories, and and this is one of the things. Like, so when people do like, okay, how are you going to be successful as a writer? Like, one of the pieces of advice that works really, really well for some people is like, all right, well, figure out what's hot and what's trending in the market and write to market. I can't really do that. Like, I have to write for myself first. And sometimes that means writing things that are trending or trending adjacent. But more often than not, that's just coincidence or lucky timing on my part. I write the books I want to read. And I just really hope other people also want to read them.
Well, so far it's been working out.
So far, yeah. I think it's, and this is one of the things that I tell new writers too. It's like, first of all, there is no one true way to be successful as an author. There is only your true way to be successful. And it may not look like the way that, some other dude did it. And it may not be on the same timeline as some other dude did it. It may not be on the timeline you wish it was, right? Like, absolutely. I would love for my career to, have reached the 6-figure milestone much sooner than it will. You know what I mean? But I have no doubt that I'll get there. It's just I have to get there in a way that is authentic to my writing style, my personality, my taste, and otherwise it's not my career, it's someone else's career, and it's just not gonna be sustainable.
Actually, that's one thing I do want to ask you about. So you said that was around 2000. When did you go to DragonCon for the first time? And
first time I went to DragonCon was 2001.
Okay.
I met John Ringo in 2004. My first pro sale was in 2010.
Okay. And
then I published my first novel in 2017.
Okay. So the reason I'm gonna go into this is because I put a poll up on Reddit asking the Royal Road and LitRPG subreddits like, how old are you? And the average age was like 18 or like 19.
Oh, yeah, I'm
like
way old for this game, dude.
Yeah, well, me too.
Not as an author though, but for LitRPG. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, like, what's your take on Royal Road, and how do you see the genre like kind of shifting and growing with like these new online platforms that are coming out?
So Royal Road has been it has been a trip. I I started posting Shadow Card Guardian on New Year's Eve of 2024, right? So I am brand new to Royal Road. I am an experienced author, and this is going to sound, I hope this doesn't come across as arrogant, but I'm just trying to lay out like my background, right, for your listeners. So prior to Shadow Card Guardian, I've published, like I said, over 15 novels. I've received Dragon Award finalist nominations for 2 of those novels. I've completed whole series before. And so there is I have a pretty diverse writing career too. Right. And because that's the other thing about me is that I am hardcore genre fluid, right? I write military science fiction. I write, space opera.
Yep.
I write alternate history. I write like soft alternate history and also hard alternate history. And then I'm like, now I've just taken this hard left into deck building LitRPGs, and nothing in my career is quite like Royal Road.
Okay. Yeah, it's a wild platform.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. So I was very blessed and very fortunate again to have the guidance of John Stovall, who created the card world universe that Shadow Card Guardian is set in. His incredible story, Demon Card Enforcer, of which there are 3 books. The first 2 have been stubbed on Royal Road and are available in Kindle Unlimited right now. You should definitely go read them because they're fantastic. Book 3 is ongoing on Royal Road. I read those and was so inspired and was talking with him about this because I knew that I wanted to add like I knew that I wanted to add a serialization kind of to my repertoire, right? So I was talking with him and I read his story and it was so good. And, basically he was like, yeah, if you want to write a story in my world, great, let's do it. I'll help you. I'll help you with the magic system and everything like that, which he did. And he was fantastic. And he's very experienced on Royal Road. And so he had a lot of like insight as to, okay, here are sort of the nuances of when you post and how you post and, kind of what the audience is looking for. So I wrote my story and, he basically did a developmental edit on it for it to make sure that it fit within the world. Yeah. And he also offered me some like really insightful advice about like, okay, who is the audience? Because that's what he told me. He was like, look, your audience on Royal Road, it's mostly young dudes, right? So understand that what they're looking for from a young dude perspective is they like it they don't, and at first I was like, oh, well, are they going to like my, female protagonist? He was like, yeah, they are. And I'll tell you why. Because they like protagonists who are practical, who are not afraid to get hyper violent when the circumstances call for it.
Extremely hyper violent.
Yeah, but they want heroes, right? They want what some of them do. Some of them like the vicious, violent, like hyper violent anti-hero villain. Yeah. He's like, but the reason they're gonna like Dani, which is who my character is because she is hyper violent, but she has her code, right? Her code is basically don't mess with my kid. And he said, and that's something that's going to resonate with this audience because they're young dudes. They want, they like heroes that have a reason for the things that they do. And so he was able to give me that kind of insight, which I found so valuable. Because as a writer, the main thing you're trying to do is connect with the audience, right? And so coming back to like, what is the experience on Royal Road like? It's really been fascinating how quickly I do sort of feel like a connection to my readers, especially the ones who go on and like comment, Oh,
absolutely.
I've got readers who will comment on every chapter and I'm so grateful for them because, obviously that drives engagement and more visibility and yada, yada, yada. But it's just like that instant feedback of these guys going, wow, thanks for this chapter. They always say that, thanks for the chapter. But then they'll be like, first, they'll be like speculating on, these characters and what are they going to do next? And oh my gosh, what does this next card look like? Right. Because they know that in the serial format, they're only getting a chapter at a time. And I've loved that interaction. And I'm also, I got to be honest with you, like I've loved it, but I didn't realize before I started posting that I'm like, holy shit, like this is a big, sorry, I probably shouldn't swear. I
No, you can swear as much as you want.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'll be honest with you, it's like my verbal punctuation.
Don't worry about that. Yeah.
But what I was saying was like, I didn't realize how like much of a responsibility I feel now to these guys. You know what I
do.
mean?
Yeah.
Like,
So a lot of authors get caught up in that. I was talking to a newer author last night. He's from the same city as I am, actually. Just hit the main Rising Stars list. I'll message.
Oh, congrats to him.
I'll message you who they are afterwards.
Yeah.
And he's just so nervous about it. He's like, I didn't want to hit this early. I don't know how to interact with these people. I have to set up my Patreon. I was like, just breathe. Like, you have 30 days.
Yeah.
Like, don't refresh every 35 minutes. Because I did it. My partner had to, like, pull me aside and say, hey, listen, you have to, like, breathe and relax. Like, this is not you. This is just, like, something you did. And you're posting it and people are interacting with you. I think that's the only... I just always see people get so caught up in it. Now.
Yeah, for sure. And it's again, it's interesting coming at it from my perspective because I'm used to people somewhat used to people interacting with my stories, right? But the thing that's different about Road Road is that it is so immediate,
and
right?
Sometimes brutal.
And it can be brutal, yeah. No, if they don't like something, they will let you know right away, and you're like, oh shit, okay,
oh no,
all right, and I can see how. Again, I'm grateful for the experience that I've had because I've been critiqued before, right? I've been reviewed before. And I've had the experience of people saying, I didn't like this story for this, that, and the other reason. And that has at least given me the perspective to be able to say, okay, let me do my best to remove my ego from the situation and consider this feedback. Is this something... like, do they have valid points here? And if they do I want to do anything about it? Do I want to change it? Because when I wrote Shadow Card Guardian, I wrote the whole thing. I wrote the entire first book before I posted a word on Road.
How many words?
100,000.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's 48 chapters is what it ends up being. So the story's done, right? So if somebody were to come in chapter 1 and be like, nobody did this. Nobody would do this. This is dumb. But if someone were to come in and be like, no, this is bullshit. Women aren't violent like that. You can't have a woman. This entire story is wrong. I'm like, well, I can't exactly just change it on the fly, right? Which is one of the things that sometimes people do on Railroad if they are writing in the process or if they're posting in the process of while they're writing it. I couldn't do that. The story was done, right?
You said, so, all right, here we are. Let's go.
Right. So you have to ask yourself, do they have a valid critique? And if so, what, if anything, am I going to do about it? And there was one that it wasn't like dumb like that. It was early on in the story. I had the character make a choice about whether or not to like assign her levels, as soon as she got them.
Okay.
And I had her make the choice to wait, and one of the commenters was like, "This is so dumb. Like, why would she wait? She's not taking advantage of everything that she has." And I decided my response to him was, thank you. That's very insightful. I appreciate that. I'm going to leave it as it is because I enjoy the character growth that happens. Because remember that this is new to the character. You obviously are an experienced gamer. She's not.
It's not you, it's the character.
Yeah. But so it's there. I think that there's a definite art to be learned of how to interact back with your
absolutely
readers, especially when they're offering critique, whether it's valid or not valid. And so it's been kind of a crash course. And
sorry about that, everybody. That was my apologies. I accidentally didn't delete enough stuff on my computer, but we're back.
We're back.
Casey, we were just talking about before it stopped recording about how Royal Road is like a crash course in editing and feedback. Do you have any, like, because you've been writing for a while and you've had your books posted for a long time. Do you have any advice for authors on how to manage audiences? And we're going to get into that a little more detail, but you have a pretty good audience that you seem to manage really well.
Oh, thank you. So the insight that the insight that someone offered me early on in my career was that, you know, if you're looking for, there are different types of fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like, you know, just think about how you are when you interact with a new piece of media, right? Some things you love, like right away, you love it. You're like, this is amazing. I want to read everything that this author does, right? Those are the fans, and they have the potential to become super fans,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then sometimes it's just like you read it and you're like, oh, that's okay. Yeah, I'll probably read the sequel. I don't know if I'll seek out any other series that this author has done. Or sometimes you read it and you're like, I mean, I finished the book, but it didn't really affect me one way or the other. And understanding that people are going to interact with your work in all of those different ways is important, is kind of like a fundamental piece of like understanding how to interact with your audience, because your audience, the people who come to you, who reach out to you, who try to connect with you, they're all in the fan category, right? Unless you get the ones who come on your page and just start blasting you for no reason. You're still living rent free in their head, but they're in another space.
Yeah.
And it's best to just, you know, if someone is doing that kind of thing to you, because I know that does happen on Royal Road. People go on and just like put hateful comments, you know, about, and it's best to just disengage and block, and, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, first and foremost, you got to protect your own mental health, right? Because you can't create anything if you're not healthy.
Got to protect your peace.
Yeah, protect your peace. So, but when it comes to critiques and comments and things from the people who genuinely care about your work, it's important, I think, to acknowledge that their critiques and such do come from a place of caring, and acknowledge that, you know, maybe they do have validity, even if you're not going to take their advice, right? Understand that as the writer, you're the creator of your world. That means you're in charge, right? Yeah. Even editors, and this is something that I tell new writers when they turn in their books for edits. Even editors, they're going to tell you this, you know, change this sentence, do this, do this, do this. Even if you take 90% of their edits, all edits are still, at the end of the day, just suggestions. Now, there are very good reasons to take those edits, because you hired a professional editor who knows what the fuck they're doing, but you can always choose not to, and let the chips fall where they may, right? And so I think that's important for creators to understand, that as the creator, it's yours. You do what you want with it. The one exception really is like in a situation like mine, where I'm writing in a world that was created by another creator, with a magic system that was created by another creator. So at the end of the day, that magic system and those world details, those are his. So if he says something doesn't work within the canon, then I have to change that, obviously.
Understood.
Yeah, but like my characters and the choices that my characters make, I am the final arbiter of those. And so if I have a reader who obviously cares enough about my story to comment on it, say, no, Danny did the wrong thing here, the best advice that I could give to someone in that situation is take their, you know, read their comment, understand that it comes from a place of caring about the story, decide if it has validity, and then decide, what are you going to do about it, right? If it has validity and you decide that maybe it should be different, then make the edit and acknowledge it and say, thank you, that, you know, that was something I hadn't considered, but you're right. If it has validity, but you're not going to change it, either because it would change too much down the story, or you just think the character would make a different choice, still thank them for the comment, and just say, look, the character made a different choice than you did. And if you lose them, that's okay. They're allowed to leave, right?
Absolutely.
But at least you've interacted with them. You've given them respect for the fact that they respect your story enough to care about it. And you've been a pleasant person.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
With the stuff. I agree. I agree. And yeah, I mean, I agree with all of your points. And I also noticed that you do a really good job of just like running your writing as like a business. You have a website set up.
Oh, yeah.
You have a newsletter, and I run a newsletter. I don't have the world's best website, but you have, from what I know, you have a good email list. You have an excellent website. You are providing your audience updates with stuff. Do you think that's important nowadays for authors?
I do, obviously, I
Yeah.
do, right? And it really comes back to this idea of, okay, what do you want your career to look like, right? That's the first thing that I would ask a young author, because the truth is, you could be writing just to write. It could be a hobby. That is totally valid, and more power to you. And I hope it brings you so much joy. And I hope that, you know, if you do decide to publish just for fun, that you bring so much joy to so many other people, right? One of my best friends, her name's Melissa Olthoff. She's an author. She's got this incredible fantasy book coming out this summer from Baen Books called Rise from Ruin. It's like chef's kiss.
What's it about? That sounds really good,
it is about a future post-apocalyptic society that has genetically engineered both dragons and griffins to serve in military roles, but different ones, you know, based on their strengths. And the main character is at a military academy, and she's supposed to become a dragon rider, but due to a prank pulled by some of her friends, she accidentally bonds to a griffin instead.
Awesome.
And so like her whole worldview changes. It's called Rise from Ruin. It's so good. I cannot wait for this book to hit the world. But she has said many times that her goal is not to write full time. She has an incredible job. You know, as I won't say what her day job is, but she has an incredible day job that, you know, pays her very well, and that she enjoys doing, that, you know, helps her to help provide for her family, you know, and gives her the wherewithal to where writing, you know, she can pursue writing as a side hustle. And she's like, that's what I always want it to be. And I think that's great, right? But I'm kind of digressing. But my point is, you got to ask yourself, what do you want your career to look like? I'm writing full time, so my career has to look like a business. It not just look like a business. I have to think of it as a business.
It is a business, yeah. And that means just deciding upon a strategy. Now, the strategy that I have chosen is I want to diversify my my publishing outlets and therefore my income streams. So I'm publishing traditionally with Baen Books. I've got a fantasy adventure called Mage Light coming out with Baen in May. Yes, I'm very excited. I love that cover. Looks great. It looks, when I was stalking you, I was like, oh my god, that looks so good in May. That looks awesome.
Sam Kennedy is the artist, and he's amazing. Yeah. He did all of the Ashes of Entisea covers too.
Cool.
So good. Yeah. But yes, so I'm publishing traditionally with Baen Books. I'm publishing with independent publisher Chris Kennedy, publishing with my Ashes of Entisea and my Four Horsemen stuff. And then I am now with Royal Road, my subscription via my website, and eventually we're going to bring Shadow Card Guardian out in Kindle later this year. That'll be sort of like my self-publishing arm, right? I have very deliberately chosen to do these 3 separate outlets because I want multiple income streams. You know, it's the mini baskets for all your eggs theory, right? In addition to that, I'm using those things to build a fan community. That's my end goal. So all of my choices with regard to social media, with building the newsletter, with having, you know, hosting my subscription on my website instead of a site like Patreon or Ko-Fi or you know, any number of other really excellent options, they weren't specifically right for me because of this strategy of I want to build a fan community of people who love my books, understand that I write across multiple genres, are willing to try across multiple genres because they like the type of story that I tell. And so, you know, that's why I have my Discord that, you know, I offer to members of my newsletter. That's why I have my newsletter that is my direct contact with, you know, the 5,000 people that are on the list. So, and if you want to join my fan community, listeners out there in listener land, come to my website and you can do that for free. So
absolutely. I'm always trying to push authors to start, like, all these newsletters builders, they all have a website portion nowadays, like Kit or Beehive or whatever. And I've had a really hard time, like, trying to push authors to, and then I'll show them my graph. I'm like, look at my graph. Like, literally look at my newsletter graph and my subscribers and my open rates, and you can see all these statistics. You can see how many people are clicking on links. You can see all these different things, and you can track what's working and what's not. But it's just adding on to more work. But like you said, it's a business. Do you do it all yourself? Like, are you running your website, Discord? I know you have the admins and stuff and the mods, but are you doing, like, all the newsletter stuff, everything? Or do you have help, or do you pay somebody for that stuff?
I do have help in the form of I have an excellent website company that I work with called Mod Farm that does all the infrastructure for my website. I run my newsletter through my website as well. But I write the newsletters every week.
Yep.
And I send them out. And part of the reason for that is, so here's my breakdown on newsletters, right? Just talking about telling authors why it's a good idea to have a newsletter. I've been around long enough that I've seen multiple iterations of social media platforms. I've seen people straight up deplatformed. I've seen people shadow banned. I've seen platforms go away.
Yep.
Hashtag TikTok. I've seen stuff
Vine.
like that. Multiple times. That's just what happens when you get old. You see these things, right? But what has not gone away is that people have email addresses.
Yep.
And with an email list, because you own the list, right? Like even if my email provider, even if my website provider completely goes down, I still own that list of email addresses of people who have entrusted me with their email address because they want to stay in contact with me. And so I can take that list and I can go set it up on another provider, or I can rebuild the website or whatever, but I can still reach out to those people and say, hey, here is what's going on with me. I haven't dropped off the face of the planet. I do have more books coming out, and it's part of that community building piece that I talked about, right?
Yep.
So email is platform agnostic. It is the most bulletproof method of contact you have with your audience. So start your email list. And then once you understand that people aren't just giving you their email, they are entrusting you with access to them. And you need to guard that like the precious thing that it is, right? Mm-hmm. So when you reach out to them, understand that these are your friends. Maybe they're not like the type of friends that you would invite over to your house to have a beer because you don't know them like that, but they are your friends in a way, and they want to connect with you. So allow them to connect with you in the way that feels most appropriate and safe for you. Which means, sure, put boundaries in. Like I don't talk about my kids. I mention my kids on my website, but I don't talk about details about my kids. Mm-hmm. I don't say their names. I don't put pictures of my kids on my website or on my newsletter. Some people do. That's a choice for you to make. Some people talk about their pets. I talk about my pets quite a bit, right? Some people don't even do that. Some people just show, pictures of like their garden or whatever. Some method for your audience to connect with you as a person, because that will make them even more invested in knowing about your work.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. And I think a lot of people just don't recognize that email has the best open rates and also some of the highest click-through rates for sales. Mm-hmm. A lot of organizations, they run like 30% of their revenue through email. So it's almost like you're shooting yourself in the foot when you're not at least trying. Like, I'm not saying...
Right.
A lot of people, it's hard too. I get it. Like when you do a newsletter and you get like 5 signups, you're like, oh my goodness. But... And
it takes a while, right? It takes a while to build up. But Patreon is the same way, right? You've got to play the long game. If you're doing this as a business and you're doing it, once you have your strategy, understand you are going to be playing the long game, right? Yep. So cherish those connections, nurture them, and be grateful for them, and treat them well, and they will treat you well. They will buy your books. I had a gentleman in Australia buy my entire first trilogy in the Ashes of Entesia series in hardcover, which are only special edition. I only sell them as a trilogy. He bought the entire first trilogy, had me sign them, shipped them to Australia, paid me for the shipping. Like it was a big expense, but he did that because he loved my work, and he was invested in me as a person and as a creator. And people will do stuff like that because they want to support you.
I absolutely agree, and it's just slow going at first, and people want the results immediately, but those sorts of things like website clicks or newsletter reads or whatever, that just takes time, and it comes with a lot of effort. I'm sure. Which is
one of the things that can be really great about Royal Road, because I realized this about my own experience, because I'm also an instant gratification girly, right? Like I love the instant feedback of people enjoying the story. So if you have the wherewithal to sort of separate out and understand, like I can get my instant gratification fix from people saying thank you for the supporting you directly in that manner. So yeah.
I absolutely agree, and I lost the recording again. I think there's something wrong with my computer. It's really pissing me off here. It really pissed me off because I have 90 gigabytes now. We lost
Aw.
like 5 seconds. What the heck is going on here, Casey? I hate computers.
I hope it's not me.
It's
I hope your computer
it's definitely
doesn't hate me.
no, it's not you at all. It's not you at all. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we only lost like 2 seconds. I totally agree with you when it comes to trying to build out your audience and trying to use things like loss leaders, because it is a business and businesses use those kind of tactics. How much time do you have left? Because I know you said you run a tight schedule.
Yeah, I got about 5 minutes.
Perfect. We didn't really get to talk too much about what kind of stories that you like to use and what kind of tactics you like to use when creating your stories.
Yeah.
I know you really like to, from what I've read, you really seem to like to twist up where, like, traditional story types. What kind of stories do you think you like to tell, and how do you like to craft them?
I'm so glad you asked this question. I like to tell. So my tagline is I write emotionally charged adventure, fantasy, and science fiction.
Fantastic.
So I like to tell stories that are character driven, because what's interesting to me is the people and how they interact with each other and the world around them, and the emotions that they experience while they do that, right? So some people are probably going to hear that and be like, oh, she's a romance writer. I'm not. I would like to be someday, but I'm not, because people experience multiple types of emotions, not just romance. So a lot of my stories do have romantic subplots, and I am proud of that, because I think that that's one of the core emotional experiences of being human, is actually trying to, like, create a bond with another human
100%
being.
100% agree.
But that's not the only one, right? I do a lot, especially in my military work. I explore a lot of this idea of brothers and sisters in arms, because I have relationships in my life that, I formed through my military service that are, these people are closer to me than siblings, right? Because of the trauma bond, right? Because of the things that we've gone through together.
Absolutely.
I also deal a lot with stories of found family for that same reason, right? Because I think that people, I'm going to speak in generalities here, because I know that this is not the case for everyone, but at the core of us, humans are somewhat pack animals, right? We are designed to function in cooperation with other humans, and our life is enriched when we are able to do that. And so those are themes that you will find in all of my stories are 100%. Found families, emotional reactions to things, dealing with difficult experiences, the fact that the world is not fair. How can we be good people in spite of that? Those are themes that you will find in all of my stories.
I really liked how you always like to you always have badass mother figures.
Oh yeah, and don't fuck with my kids. That's another theme that you will find in all of us.
I love it. I was like, this is great. This is fantastic. I really appreciate that, because I read a lot, and oftentimes the stories I'm reading are like power fantasy stories, and it's like, the orphan that started in a forest writing a story about an orphan starting from a forest and, like, ascending to, like, king of the world or whatever.
Which is great. There's nothing wrong with that.
There isn't. There isn't. I know you have to go. So I before you drop off, is there anything you want to add or ask or add or shout out or last words of advice?
Last words of advice for those wanting to write or create or just, be, this is going to sound super trite, but bro, you got to do it your own way, right? Like, you got to write your stories. You got to tell your stories. You've got to build your career. You've got to follow your strategy. The good news is it's all up to you. The bad news is it's all up to you. You got to figure it out. So take the best of what other people have done, decide if it's going to be applicable to what you want to do, and go for it. Try shit out. If it doesn't work, learn from it and move on, man.
Absolutely.
That's just life. I would love to invite your listeners to check out my fiction totally for free on Royal Road, as we've discussed. It's called Shadow Card Guardian, by Kacey Ezell. You can also find the rest of my my fiction that I would love to allow you to pay me for on my website, CaceyEzell.net. You can also find there my fan community called the Dragon's Horde. A basic membership in the Dragon's Horde, which gets you a couple of free short stories, access to my private Discord, and then also my weekly newsletter with updates like we talked about. That is totally free as well. And then I also have some advanced tiers, which again, I would love to allow you to pay me for, that will get you some early access to not just I kind of have like two lines of my subscription, right? There's those who are interested in the Shadowcard Guardian stories where you can get early access to those. But then I also have another line that focuses more on my other work. So you'll see like some sneak peek snippets and a couple live streams and stuff on those lines. So all of those are available, CaceyEzell.net. And I'd love to welcome you into the Horde.
Thank you for allowing me to interview you, Kacey.
Thank you for interviewing me. This was so much fun.
You're such a good speaker.
Oh, thank you.
I'm gonna stop recording.